Hey guys, good day to you all. My name is Dr. Rob Kelly, the Addiction Doctor, along with my co-host Jennifer Lovely. Hope you're having a great day, guys. This is the Recovery Channel podcast coming live to you on Facebook and YouTube for the second time today. Hope you enjoyed the first one. It's got lots of messages and text from people. Good morning again, Jen. How are you?
Good morning. You know what I'm super bummed at? I watched the beginning of the show and not once were you like, where is my partner in crime? She's not here. Why is she not here? Not once. Not once. No, you didn't even say that. You were just like, that's fine. She didn't show. That's cool. I'm just going to do it all myself.
I must have been also. It must have been the beer from last night. I was just still hungover or something. So you lost power, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I lost power. So everything is off. And I called J Bear, as we call, that's Robb's wife. And I said, the problem is I haven't memorized your number yet. And then I don't have a home number. So I couldn't call you guys to and that would have been dead anyway. So it was just a little bit, and I had to get the generator running and the whole thing
Wow.
Yeah. I know. So it was just a little ordeal. I felt so, I'm one of those people. I'm an integrity. I show up on time. So,
I knew as soon as Lance, the other guy logged on at 1 minute too.
Damon.
So as soon as you was on at 5:02, I text J-Bed, there's a problem. Try and find out what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Where's Jen? And of course, J-Bear has this little thing that she does where she leaves her phone like 2 miles away from where she is all the time. She does it. It drives me crazy. Like, we just sent a message out to like four clients and the parents. Did we get a reply? Where's my phone? It's like, what? It's the main phone number for our business. So, I didn't want to say anything in case you came on. Like 3 minutes, and we could slide you on. But yes, I was texting away. Like, where is she? Where are you? What's going on? It's like no reply. And I'm like, but I knew there was something wrong. Definitely.
Yeah. So anyways, that was fun this morning. It shook things up a little bit, but loved coming in on that conversation. And here we are having another deep conversation with somebody that has spent some time away and has a great story to share about what it is to be recovered. So I'm excited about that.
Well, talking about power out, we'd ordered the Peloton, as you know, and she actually rode our Peloton, which was awesome.
Yeah.
Some of her experience from Robb. But we were waiting for so long for it, and then all of a sudden the day came. So you know the deal. They come, they set it up, they test it and everything. The minute the band pulled outside, all the electric went off. And it stayed off for like 4 hours. So they couldn't set it up. They put it down. They put all the stuff out, but they couldn't actually turn it on. So it's very frustrating.
It is.
The crazy things we go through. I know what you're asking, guys. I know you sat there going, who's on the show today? Well, Lance Wright. Remember Lance Wright from the earliest podcast that we did? Breaking Through Addiction. We are now the Recovery Channel podcast. Lance was on there. He's also one of our sponsors for the show, starting on Monday, I believe. So great guy, involved in the community. Just nice to see people who do what we do, Jen, giving back, helping people, stuff like that. I've got a great story, though, guys. Great story. So if you remember Lance Wright, you're in for a treat. If you don't, stick around, guys. This is going to be awesome. We'll be back after this.
All right. Hello?
Welcome back to the show, guys. My name is Dr. Robb Kelly, the Addiction Doctor, along with Jennifer Lovely. This is the Recovery Channel podcast, one of the fastest growing podcasts in the world on addiction. Can you believe that? In the world, I'm telling you. This show is going places, has been places, and will continue to go. Got some great people coming up, guys. Got some amazing people coming up. And we've also got an amazing person today. So welcome to the show, guys. Lance Wright. Good morning or afternoon, Lance. How you doing?
Good morning, Rob and Jen. I'm blessed. We're here having a conversation. We have our lives. We have our families. We have, the gift of helping others.
We do. We do. Well, welcome to the show. And I'm really, really curious. You talk about we from our previous conversations, we know what you've been through, and I'm really curious as to the day you realized that you were recovered. You weren't recovering, but you were recovered.
That's a hard one. I don't know that, and maybe there's some that would argue, but I don't want to ever think I'm recovered. I mean, I know that I haven't used in 27 years. I haven't committed a crime or behavioral outburst in 24. But every day I wake up, I don't forget where I come from. And I still have the old thinking patterns, those neural pathways that when things get tight, that voice calls and says, you have the answer. I've just learned to say no. I mean, I would probably say I'm not in a codependent relationship with my addiction anymore. I mean, I recognize it for what it is, and I respect it today, and I choose not to participate in it. But I could, at any moment, go pick up if I wanted to. It's a choice today. And giving myself time, I remember early on my sponsor and mentor, more of a mentor and father figure, I asked him because I thought he walked on water. I mean, this guy was like the guy. And I said, when did you get it? And he says, well, I can't tell you. I don't know. And I go, well, what kind of an answer is that from somebody that's the guru? And he goes, look, it was as simple as this. I became open to following direction. I started practicing some things differently. And one day I realized that my life had changed and I liked it, so I kept doing it. And he says, I don't know when that's going to happen for you, but hey, you just got to do what you got to do. And I remember, I think the moment that goes to what you were asking, kind of specific, where I realized I was recovering and had like my life back. I was in the jail. I did, a lengthy stint in prison. And we had started doing a program called Criminals and Gang Members Anonymous. My mentor was like the founding member, a 12-step program for the lifestyle. And we see addiction as a lifestyle that incorporates both behavioral and substances. And we talked about that a little last time. But I remember we were putting forums on to invite public officials to come into the prison to present what we do in the program as a way of curbing criminality in their community. Because our amends was if we could reduce recidivism or people repeating criminal behavior in their communities, we were sparing future victims, and that was part of our amends. And I was writing letters to all these people. I was about halfway through this one particular letter saying, hey, we have this program. It can help the county. We want to help you. How can you show up so we can talk about it? And I realized I was writing the district attorney who had convicted me of a life sentence.
Wow.
And I realized then that I was no longer in prison inside my soul. Even though I was barbed wire and cement and steel, in my soul, I was literally free and doing something I had never done before in my life. I was part of society, although I was still locked up.
Wow. Awesome. Absolutely. Guys, if you can hear background noise, my 4 English Bulldogs have joined us in the studio today. Thank you, English Bulldogs, but 2 of them are in the background. No doubt they'll become rescue in a second. And the other one, I feel horrible for this. I'm just on at J Bear saying she always leaves her phone in the other room. People are texting her, Jen, you text like 2 minutes before the show starts, and I just went to text you and like, how did I miss them 3 texts? I know I've got my thing on silent, but it's right in front of my I don't know. Okay, Lan, give us the worst time in your life. Take us back to the worst time in your life.
It had to be my first 6 to 10 years of life. I mean, I think that's where everything in my life started, is not having my father left when I was 13 months old. This was back in the 60s, mid 60s. And my mom was basically trying to figure out how to live and find love. And she was a Haight-Ashbury girl. It was like, I remember spending many a night alone home with my dog, wondering if mom was ever going to come home again, and learning how to cook, eggs and make potatoes and, survive as like a little wild child, basically. And I remember feeling dark and alone, and that really nobody was in my life that cared about me. Even though mom would make, she was there, it was very different. And, the probably the worst thing that ever happened to me was around age 6. Up to that point in school, kindergarten, I was picked on a lot. I got in a lot of fights. Even as a little kid, I had ADHD that was off the charts. And so I spent a lot of time in the principal's office. But I had a few friends that I hung out with, and they all had parents. And I, obviously I was that little bastard kid, so to speak, inside my soul. Or at least I didn't know what that meant at the time, but that's how I felt. Like I was different. And they used to play pinball downtown at the Greyhound bus station in our neighborhood area. And I never had money, so they would give me quarters and stuff like that, or give me an extra game, and I'd mooch. Really popular word for me when I was young. And one day going home from wherever I was at, I noticed there was a couple racks of Coke bottles in the neighbor's yard. And I knew those were money because I had taken Coke bottles to the store before for Mom. And so I didn't think of it as stealing. I kind of think of it now as a requisition. As I took those Coke bottles down to the store and I got a handful of quarters. And everything in my life changed because I had something that other kids had. And it was interesting to feel normal, but it really wasn't. It was like a pseudo normal. Those quarters represented like drugs to me. They changed my character and how I felt about myself. I went to the pinball place. I was giving other people quarters. I was playing pinball. I felt top of the world. But the problem with anything like that is as soon as those quarters were gone, that little feeling came creep back in. But now I knew how to change that feeling of being different than other people. And I started being a little thief. Then I ran into somebody like you, Rob, and you're like, why are you wearing Winnie the Pooh, corduroy overalls and getting laughed at? Come on, I'll take you over to Sears. You teach me how to shoplift. And now I have nice pants and nice shoes. And, I'm like the other kids. I feel normal. Although what I'm doing isn't normal, and I'm really not really cognizant at that age of what I'm doing. I'm just doing it. And I started to develop this other identity to get away from that little bastard kid. And I really didn't come out of that until I was in my late 20s in prison. I didn't even realize that had happened until I really sat down and started to look at my life. And it's really sad that, and I mean, no judgment on my parents. They did whatever they do, I mean, I've gotten through that stuff in my own recovery journey, but it's just sad that, when I look at a kid that's 6, 8, 10 years old now, I wonder, wow, at that age, you were doing these things already. And that's, you just don't think that. And by the time I got 9 and Mom got me around an aunt who had smoked weed with the family, I won't go into details, but at 9 years old, I'm smoking weed with family in Northern California, and it's perfectly normal and okay. And I found something that actually changed my state of mind and made me feel good, and I liked it. And so between stealing and smoking weed, up to age 12, I did pretty much everything but heroin, meth, and cocaine. I mean, it was just because my family was running around in that circle, my aunts, uncles, my mom. And by the time I was 16, juvenile hall, youth authority camps, it just, extended into that whole lifestyle. Mom got diagnosed with cancer when I was 16. And then right about that time, I ran into some friends. And I was already emotionally kind of slow and checked out. I didn't like to feel those negative feelings. No drug addict or alcoholic or like criminal wants to. And I ran into some people that said, you want to try some meth? And I'm like, sure. I'm thinking it's like cocaine. I've never did any meth. And we get to this garage and I'm looking for the mirror and they pour the dope in the ashtray. Then they throw water on it and I'm like, that's strange. And then I see a hypodermic needle and I'm like, oh crap, that's junky stuff. But I don't really, my identity is based on what people think of me or what I want them to think of me or what I think they think of me. And I'm not going to say no. And, a good junkie looks over, goes, oh, you've never done it. It's okay. Just hold your arm out and look the other way. And so I did. And when I let go of my arm, a strange phenomenon happened that I had never experienced before in my life. Because remember I said I had ADHD as a young kid? Well, that was kind of like my life up to that day at 16 was like the Star Trek Enterprise going through warp speed. I never had really clarity or focus. I was scatterbrained. I was all over the place. And when I let go of my arm, it was like the Star Trek Enterprise coming out of warp speed in front of a planet. And it was like, whoa, I could see you. I could hear you. I was present. I felt good. I felt normal. it was like it took everything that I ever felt away and gave me a sense of identity in feeling great in that this is how I've always supposed to feel. And I would say that particular time above anything else in my life was the worst moment, because I remember telling myself, I never not want to feel this way again. And over the preceding next 3 years, I chased methamphetamine and did a lot of crazy stuff that, I regret. But that defining moment of methamphetamine entering my life was probably the worst moment of my life.
Yeah, and I'm sure it was. And the consequences that followed continued to be the worst, moments of your life, I'm sure. One of the things that I love to talk about, or I love to get really clear with people, is that there is an invitation for all of us. Every day there's an invitation we can choose a new path. We can choose something. And I got really clear about, I think my invitation I have a friend that always says Jesus has chased me more than she's ever seen anybody chase anyone. And finally I accepted the invitation one day. But it wasn't until my kids were in so much pain, somebody else had to be in so much pain for me to deeply, deeply accept that invitation, which is where my codependency is, right? And what? But I'm curious, when did you realize that there was an invitation?
Well, I mentioned I ended up with a life sentence at 20 years old. Well, it was actually a 17-year, 4-month to life prison sentence for being part of a homicide, second-degree homicide, drug-related. But I don't make excuses and I don't blame it on anything else. I just own responsibility for my actions. But my first 9 years of prison, I pretty much did the same thing I had did my whole life, is drugs and alcohol and hiding those feelings. Who wants to accept the fact that you're doing a life sentence? Mm-hmm. It just doesn't, I don't know an addict or alcoholic that you're doing, hey, Rob, you're going to do 17 years, 4 months to life, and there's drugs in front of you. What do you do as an addict? You keep using because that's my way of coping.
Yeah.
Right.
And, about 9 years into my prison sentence, I had all the chronos. I was the golden child. If you look at me, I can fit the part real quick, and nobody even knows my background if they don't, we don't talk about it. And I remember I ended up in ADSEG for methamphetamine possession and being spun out of my mind. I was 3 months to my first parole board hearing, where I was going to meet the family of Matthew, the man who died that night when I was 20, and his family. And it was just overwhelming to me. It was like, is this what my life ended up as? I don't want this. I didn't know what to do. And I remember March 11th, 93, on my knees in an ADSEG cell at Soledad State Prison in California, saying, you know what, with tears coming down my eyes and broken, I said, God, I can't live a decent life and keep doing this stuff. Help me. And I think that was probably the most authentic prayer I've ever prayed in my life. And I've been sober from substances since. And I give that credit to God. I know my higher power definitely did some magic because I thought I'd never not go a day without getting high. And it's been 27 plus years now, going on 28.
Wow.
And that's the way that's just the feeling there and then is like, there's no way can I live without it. The book talks about not living with alcohol, not living without it, being at the jumping up point. I know I was there a few times before I took the lunge. So take me back to your aha moment, Lance.
The what?
Realized that aha moment, the time when you realized that you was going to change for the better.
Well, I don't know if it didn't really happen in that kind of way where there was an aha moment. The aha moment was, I don't want this anymore. God help me. And I think I was sitting in a parole board hearing 3 months later, and Matthew's mother spoke at the end of the hearing, and she looked me in the eyes after talking about Matthew growing up and the loss to the family. And I feel like I just want to die because, how do you look at someone who you've hurt so deeply? And at the end of her conversation, she made eye contact with me and she said, we're Christians. We don't believe in hate. To hate you would serve no purpose. We forgive you. And I'm like, what? How do you forgive me for that? How does that even happen? I can't forgive myself. And then she followed it up by, I think, the most profound statement anybody's ever made to me that put me on this path to where I'm at today. She said, "We just don't understand how you could have done this to our loved one and our family member and our family." And I didn't have an answer, and I couldn't blame it on drugs and alcohol. There was a bigger story there, and I knew that in my heart. And about a year later, I was going to, I got moved to another prison, and my roommate, you know, they have normal people that don't do drugs in prison; they're just criminals. Well, I had this Opie guy as a roommate, and we're talking about life stuff. You know, what else we got to do in a cage? And he goes, "You should go to those meetings." And AA. And I'm like, nah, you know what? I tried that stuff. You know, reading the book, lighting a candle, having a cup of coffee, and some miracle happened. This shit never happened for me. And he goes, "Look, I'll go with you." And I'm like, how bad am I that a normie wants to take me to an AA meeting in prison? But I was already open to, you know, at that point, okay, God, this is what you want for me, so let's go. And I had been going about a year to AA meetings in prison, and we all played the part. We could read the book, quote the steps, probably take you through the steps. Wouldn't know what I'm doing, but I could do it. But it really wasn't personal to me. I never connected to it until a guy came in the room one night, Richard, I didn't know his name at the time, an older gentleman. And he had like a cut here tattoo around his neck, really gruffly, like old Hispanic looking gentleman. And we all are talking our normal talk and just quoting stuff from the book because it sounds good, because we want the chrono for the parole board to look good so we can go home. And he opened his mouth and he talked about trauma in his family, about his girlfriend being assaulted and cut up, about how his father disowned him and how he chased down the two guys that did that to his girlfriend and kind of had his own form of justice and became a major gang member in California. And I'm listening to this guy, and then at the end, he goes, you know, I went through these 12 steps with the guy that helped me really understand this stuff. And, you know, I figured it out, and it worked great for me. It might work for you. And he kind of dropped the mic, and I'm like, well, who is this guy? Because it was the first time I ever heard anybody in my life talk about recovery in a way that connected, and I could see it, and they made sense. And so I became a moth around the flame, and I think it wasn't an aha moment particularly, but it was a bunch of those aha moments as I started to learn about my life and why I did the things I did and become aware of them and start to change them. Those were aha moments when I realized that a lot of the stuff from my childhood created who I was. I think I shared last time when I was doing my fifth step, when we got to my father, I got real pissed. I got angry hot. And I'm on a prison yard venting like at full bore, like some crazy person. And my mentor, he's just sitting there shaking his head. And at the end, I'm like, I was abandoned, unloved, unwanted, you know, you name it. And at the end, he goes, wow, it's messed up that you've lived 30 years of your life with that energy. And I go, yeah, it was messed up. And he goes, can I ask a couple questions? And he goes, I guess so. That's kind of a weird thing to do, but yeah. And he goes, do you know any of that to be true? Do you know that you were unloved, abandoned? Do you know why your father left, or why? And it was like, I can't really put it in words, but my whole life was like a compressed ball. And the more he asked questions, it was like this like weird experience of like expanding foam. Like, that's messed up. And he goes, you know, no judgment, but you know, can you see how you created a story as a little boy, and you've been living that for 30 years and taking it out on the world and on yourself, and you don't need to do that anymore. That would be the aha moment of all moments, where I realized that little boy that felt unloved and unwanted took that out on the world and hurt a lot of people. And I felt a great sense of sadness. Yeah, it was that moment of really, I need to do this. This is what this is about, and I want something better. I don't want to be that angry little boy anymore.
I love that so much. Dr. Robb knows this, but I want every human on this planet to go back and speak to their inner child and allow that inner child to come out and play and say what they needed to say that they weren't able to say to their parents or to whoever. I love anything. I believe all of us have some form of trauma, and that once we under it and we can say it out loud, that it changes our life. And I actually believe in that moment that that person asked you, is that really true? Is the moment that you begin to create new neural pathways in your brain, which is what we know now as neuroplasticity.
Yeah.
Anytime we can go back to our inner child and allow them to speak, it creates new neural pathways. And so I imagine that that's like the moment that happened to you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, yeah, between the forgiveness of Miss Ellis and that question that day or that moment, those two things, I gained a deep insight and understanding into my journey.
Yeah, I love that. Like, that is the freedom. Like, that to me, that is the moment of freedom. So tell me how, with this new set of knowledge, how did you survive 27 years in prison?
Well, I mean, where I was at and with the mentor I had, there was it started out with maybe 6 to 12 of us on the prison yard along the weight pile, little line there. And we'd sit there and when we weren't in school or working, we'd all hang out together and talk about recovery. This may sound crazy, but I miss the relationships I had in prison. Mm-hmm. There was no secrets. We put everything on the table. And if somebody had a problem or we were talking about something, we learned from one another's experiences. It wasn't like, I guess one of the things that would really clarify it, my mentor, when I first asked him to be my sponsor, told me to leave my big book and all my pamphlets and stuff at home because he didn't want me to be a parrot of Bill, Bob, or him. I had to have my own experience to carry a message. And that's what he did with all of us. And a lot of the times he did it as a group thing. It wasn't like me and Rob just talking. It was like about 6 or 12 of us talking about real stuff, weighty stuff, and learning how to deal with stuff like in a recovery pattern that helped us grow up in there. I don't know how else to put it.
I like that. That's awesome. Guys, Lance Wright is on the show. Stick around, guys. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the show, guys. This is Recovery Channel Podcast, coming live to you on Facebook and YouTube. My name is Dr. Rob Kelly, along with Jennifer Lovely. Lance Wright is on the show. So next question is, what do you do now? What do you do when someone comes up to you now, Lance, and say, hey, I don't really know, but I've been to prison. I've come out. I can't stop drinking or using. What do I do? What do you tell them?
Well, the funny thing is, it's not just, I really rarely work with people coming out of prison. I'm actually working with people in Malibu. I fly out to Mississippi. I just got back from working with a client for 4 days in Mississippi. My private company is based on helping people start a new conversation. I think the old conversations have to go by the wayside, but in order to know what they are, we have to start a conversation. And for anybody I'm working with, it really starts there. I need to get to know the person. I think of us as puzzles. I need to know you, Rob, before I can make a suggestion. Let's have a conversation about your life and how we got here. What's the struggles? What do you want? What do you think's impossible? And let's go make it happen. I don't think there's like a button you hit and it's there. I mean, it's a journey. And when we engage in that with somebody and as a coach and as a professional, that's what my job is. I need to get to know you and help you start putting the puzzle back together in a healthy way. And if something isn't working, we need to figure out how to make something different work in your life, whether it's relationships, family, employment, school, career. I mean, this goes beyond drugs and alcohol. Anybody can get sober. You and I can get any alcoholic sober, but keeping them sober and giving them a purpose in life is really the journey.
It is, and this may be controversial, but one of the things I've been around the world of the A's for quite some time, even before my kids actually got sober. And me entering an A room, I really noticed that a lot of people focus on getting sober and then forget about all the other things that are required to live a life that's full of well-being.
Yes. When I work with, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I feel like that's the thing that's missing in, and maybe it used to be different back in the 30s and 40s, but I feel like it has succumbed, it's kind of like picked up a lot of moss along the way, and we need to go back in there and scrub it a little bit. I don't know. You tell me.
Well, I think you're spot on. I like a big part of what I do, like my guaranteed income is doing like process groups in Malibu with everything from people from the poor side of town to the rich and famous. And, I rarely talk about substances or alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, outside of understanding the brain and substances and alcohol, everybody knows they have an alcohol or substance abuse issue, and they're there and they're already sober. So
Right.
really the job is to help them find out what in their life isn't sober or what isn't working, and start developing goals and coping mechanisms and new dialogues so that when they leave treatment, they stay home and have a successful life. Most people come in and they think they're there just to get sober, and they leave in 30 days sober, but all the schmutz that they brought with them, they take home with them, and they wonder why they keep relapsing.
Right.
We talked about it last time. It upsets me to no degree that many people, we have this evidence-based treatment models, we have all these programs, and I think we talked about the numbers last time. Some of the best places, there's a 12% long-term success rate. And if I walked up to you, Jen, and I said, I'm a heart surgeon, I have a 12% success rate, I'll see you at my office and we'll meet at the hospital next Thursday, you're probably not going to show up.
Right.
People don't know that. And
Right.
I think the piece that's missing is what you and Rob and I do, and many like us, is it helping people move beyond treatment to living life with the tools they've got and learning how to implement them in their day-to-day affairs, and
Right.
giving them a job, giving them hope, giving them focus. Because if I have something to live for, I'm probably not going to revert to old behaviors.
Right.
Especially if I have that support next to me.
Right. And Rob, excuse me for a second. I just want to put this point in, is that most people die because of their health becomes poor because they had poor coping mechanisms. And one of the things that I've noticed, and again, this is going to be controversial, but we look at like the COVID, people dying of COVID. A lot of people have poor coping mechanisms, which allow for their health to be in poor condition. And because we haven't been taught how to fully be with our feelings and cope with all of the things that we have going on, how life hands us, whatever life hands us. Sorry, Rob.
No, it's fine. What three things do you want to change, Lance, about yourself, or what three things that you continue to work on with yourself? Because obviously it's an ongoing deal. We never get to the point where we stop working. So just tell us the three things that you're working on.
Being a more spiritual person, I think, is probably the number one on my list. And I think that goes beyond religion. I think that's just as a human being. I can always do more work there. That's me. Being a better communicator and not living in fear. And I mean that when I say not living in fear, of stepping out and not being afraid of what people think, because I know who I am.
I like that. That is one of my biggest missions in life is for people to continue to speak truth to truly who they are.
And that's like Rob said the last time we talked, our story is our truth.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to hide anymore. And actually our story possesses the actual keys to help somebody else create their own positive story in life.
Yeah, and people are not aware of that. Somebody came to me a couple of years ago, and after a talk somewhere, and they came up to me and said, "Oh, good to see you again, Rob. Your talk was awesome, but it's kind of the same stuff you said last time you came. It's like it's my story. What do you mean? Make stuff up? What do you mean it's the same? Of course it's the same. It's a comedy act you've come to watch. I don't have to make my material every month. Are you crazy? It's just amazing." Well, I want to go back to treatment centers for a second, because obviously I don't really agree with what most treatment centers do. There are a bunch of great guys out there that we affiliate with, but most treatment models and centers, there's a smoke screen there with the people who don't know, and the parents and the wives and the kids.
Yeah.
of like this. You know, they get call centers now on TV. If you're suffering from alcoholism, call us. We'll do it. It's a call center that calls other people and gets paid for it. It's just a piece of crap. You know, why is little Johnny going back into the treatment center for the third time, still paying 30 grand a month? That's my biggest question. Why do I don't know, 60% of people coming out of treatment use or drink on the way home? I mean, what the hell is being taught in these places? It's not about the alcohol. It's not about the drugs. It's the symptom. The root cause is the trauma, is the messed up remap brain, is the behavior around alcohol. Anybody can stop. Can you stay stopped? Well, no. Why? Because I crave. First of all, you can't crave for anything that's not already inside your body. So let's stop that shit for a start. I've never heard that. It's the only self-diagnosed illness in the world. Oh my God, I've never heard that. What the hell was you learning in that center for 90 days? You can't just stick somebody in with a bunch of these guys. Most of them call themselves counselors, but all they're doing is teaching out the big book. I mean, don't get me wrong, the first 164 of the Big Book for Alcohol Anonymous, especially the first edition, public domain, is the best piece of literature I have ever read regarding the recovery of an alcoholic and an addict. It just is. I mean, I've studied Carl Jung. I've studied, 27, 28 years on remapping of brain and neuroplasticity and neuroscience. First 164 kind of says it all in the early days. So I'm not sure what these guys are being taught, but we have to talk about permanent recovery. The book talks about it. We talk about it as being the way forward. You know, one day at a time doesn't mean I'm not using and drinking today. It means what can I cram into the stream of life today that's going to help somebody else? And that is what it's all about today. It's absolutely a beautiful life, and we need to live that. So tell me, let's say just two things that you'd like to tell the people listening for a better life.
One is you have to find somebody that has the experience of living that path to help you. Because if they don't have the wisdom, you're not going to catch it. You're not going to get it. I mean, if I went to an auto mechanic, didn't know how to fix a car, I'm not going to get a fixed car. So you got to find somebody that has quality skills and experience and lives what they speak, not just talks about it. And I guess the other side of it is that what do you want to do with your life? I think it's really client-centered. I believe in that. I believe they have to have skin in the game and what they want. I can't tell somebody what to do. They have to be a part of that conversation. And just one quick side note, I agree with you that there's a lot of treatment centers out there that I probably would never send a loved one to. I drive 50 miles a day plus. Well, actually, it's about 120 miles a day to go do process groups out in Malibu at a place because they actually do address those key issues beyond drugs and alcohol. There's therapy, there's counselors that got many, many years of experience. They actually care about people and they're doing quality work. I've worked in the puppy mills, and I call them puppy mills, where they stuff 40 people in an IOP, and they don't care if they're smoking weed or doing whatever they do. Just show up for your group so we get paid. I can't work in conjunction with anything that's going to propagate somebody relapsing and dying. And right now, with alcohol sales being up like 60%, we can only imagine what drugs are, because it goes to what you were saying, Jen. People right now don't know how to cope with reality. They're sitting home right now, lost in space, because that's all they know. That became the one thing I'm sure both of you have seen it in the company there. I see it every day where I work. They're filling up. People are starting to come out of hibernation, and they're like, we can't even function anymore. We need help to get back to planet Earth.
Yeah. Well, and I think part of what happened is the same thing that part of, how we started raising kids is everybody got a trophy, everybody got a ribbon, everybody got a participation, piece of paper, and the truth is that we began loving people to death. And when I understood that, I understood that I needed to do something different for myself, and I knew that I needed to do something different for my children. Having said that, we have entire cities that are falling apart, that are becoming vacant because we are loving our addicts to death, because the homeless are taking over and the drug addicts are taking over, or the alcoholics. because we're just loving them to death. We don't want them to be incarcerated. Well, in actuality, sometimes that's the best thing for them.
I would have to say the craziest thing I've ever said is I think prison was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know it sounds crazy to people, but actually I grew up and learned how to have a normal life there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And get used to it. Yeah, I know that was on the streets. I got used to that. There was a point in that homelessness for me where I felt quite comfortable. And I probably would have stayed there until I died, because most people die on the streets sooner or later, especially in Manchester, where I was born. It's just a way of life, but it's absolutely crazy. Lance, we're running out of time. I just want to ask you, I'll ask you one more question before you go, and then I'll leave it to Jen to finish off. She has a crippling question at the end. It's beautiful. So what does the future look like for you as we stand here today?
Doing the same thing we're doing right now, helping people. I don't know where I'm at. I'll never retire, because I know that somebody helped me in my darkest moment. And one of my greatest things in life that I love more than anything else is the gift I've been given. I get to give to other people. And when I see the success, whether it's a client or a friend, and they have their life back and they're with their families enjoying Christmas or a holiday or just being alive, that's worth more money than anybody could ever give me.
Yeah. I really hear that. And I agree wholeheartedly with you. What do you want to be acknowledged for in your life? Up to this
that I cared about people. I mean, that I authentically cared and loved people, and that I was a good mensch, for lack of a better word.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I really, really love the life I have. Sometimes it's crazy. You know, like I just flew out to Mississippi to visit a client. His parents were stressed out because he was in a manic place. And they said, we need him away from us for a few days. So I ended up in Florida with him after driving just to get him by water and to relax him and calm him down. Kid's back on path today within 3 days. You know, he just needed somebody you have to build a relationship with them where they trust you. And when I left him, he was back to what his normal self was. He trusts me to believe me what I'm telling him. He's married. He has a wife. He's working for his father. He has renting to own a condo. And this is a guy I pulled out of bushes over by UCLA 6 years ago.
Hmm.
You know, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that I love. You know, I got to go to his wedding because he says I had to be one of his best men. You know, I mean, I got to see, you know, we get to see this process play out from the beginning to where we're at now with the people we help. And that's a great gift.
It is. I really want to just honor you for the mensch that you are. You are a light of hope in a world full of darkness. And so really, Lance, thank you so much for all that you do in the world.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lance. Stick around, guys. So we'll just finish up the show. But for now, that was Lance Wright. Any information you need, contact me or Jen, and we'll give you more. But for now, thank you so much indeed, Lance. Catch us for a couple of minutes after this break, guys. Stick around. Welcome back, guys. This is the back end of Recovery Channel podcast. You just missed Lance Wright. What an amazing guy. You know, just doing what most of us would love to do. He's out there doing it, guys, giving back. Doesn't matter how far he has to travel, what he has to do. You know, we need more people in our lives that are looking at what's happening today in the treatment industry and realize that the model's broken right now. And we need to look at a new way. We need to look at brain science. We need to look at behavioral science. We need to look outside and act outside the box because it's not working, guys. Simple as that. What do you reckon, Jen?
Oh, I totally reckon. And these people need to have more than just one session with a therapist a week or an hour.
Yeah, I agree. And the therapist needs to have more than one skill.
Yes.
You need to have, or you need to see 20 people that do, because it goes well beyond just stopping drinking and drugging, as we know. It goes way beyond. And you need some experts to take you through that, You do not need a counselor who's done a 6-month course online to take you through that. It's heavy shit, you know. As most of you know, Jennifer does back to the family, back to the scene of the crime, back to the trauma. Let's try and clear that shit up and find out what's really going on, you know. And I change the way you think, and the compulsion goes and build you a life. That's the kind of model you need to be looking at. Because if you don't go back and clear that shit up, it's like a zip file, guys. You know what a zip file is? We stick everything big in there, but we don't really see it every day. It's just stuck in the corner of the screen, you know, with a name on it, a little suitcase there. But one day when you're bored and everything, you're going to click on that and it's all going to come right out in your face. You won't be able to handle it. And that's what happens with alcoholics and addicts most of the time.
Yeah. And I mean, we've had many people that start to do the work and then they get really scared and it's going, I don't want to see this. I don't want to look at it. And I realize that's scary. And at the same time, you know, meeting your clients where they're at, of course, is the important thing to do. And supporting them little by little to look at what it is, what's underneath all of that will make a huge difference in how you can change your life. So always love to talk to Lance, and I'm excited. We have another guest coming on here shortly, so I'm excited about that. Yeah,
it's going to be absolutely awesome, guys. So what we're going to do is, I thought that one more thing I was going to cover. Maybe I'll cover it on the next show. I don't know. So yeah, stick around, guys. We do have most of you might have heard of her, Jamie Marich, on the show. She's going to come in. She's like Lance. She's one of the hardcore people. She concentrates on neuroscience and trauma. She's a trauma girl. So we're gonna see what else. But for now, Lance Wright, absolutely amazing guy. Great to be on the show, live on Facebook and YouTube right now, guys. Stick around on my Facebook channel. It's just about to make it public, and then watch out for platforms overnight. But for now, guys, we'll be back in 7 minutes. But for now, thank you for watching, guys, and thank you for listening.
Yes. Thank you. Bye, guys. See you soon.
We'll be back soon.